What's going on, guys? In this video we're going to be going over the three major characteristics or types, as we would say, of disarms when it comes to single stick training in Kali or Filipino martial arts. So a lot of the times these disarms can be categorized, and essentially you can find similar disarms that follow the principle as opposed to the same movement or the technique itself, because there's so many different ways you can disarm a stick simply because the stick is an impact weapon. So now you're able to grab it, you're able to wrap it around your body. You can, essentially play around with it without having too much of lethal factors against you, as opposed to a knife or a sword or anything that is more edged and sharp. So we're going to go over the basic three that we kind of go over here at Union Martial Arts. We use it very frequently to categorize in bias tres manos, and a few of my personal favorites as well. So when I'm facing my partner, we'll be going over these disarms from various strikes. The first one was going to be an angle 2. So an angle 2 is going to be my backhand strike here. Now the first category that we kind of looked at is a very popular one, and we call it a vine disarm. So sometimes the vine is also known as snake disarms, and generally what happens is either my stick or my hand starts to entangle, starts to wrap around either the stick or his hand in order to constrict and get it into a position where I can strip it from him. So the first one I'm doing is I'm going off of an angle 2. I'm using a backhand pass down. I'm going to attack, so generally I use a thrust here to create some occupancy, so that when I pass this down, I don't just do it as we watch each other. So once I fill that void, I'm entangling my safety hand around, and basically I'm catching a stick inside my elbow here. My hand is going to go behind the puño section, or the hooking section as we call. As I do that, I'm going to step back to break his base, and I'm going to wrap over to create some pressure. So what I've done is I've entangled, isolated his weapon, put my partner into a submissive position, and then from here I can simply just strip it out, and then I have the disarm there. So vines normally work in a more grappling situation because it does require a little bit more time, and it does also require you to be in a position where you can wrap around. So if I am, let's say, a little more further out and I try to wrap from here, this is me really trying to push it, and oftentimes I would say this is like you're worming your hand around. And if you try to worm your hand around, you start to give up the position where your partner can start to take it from you, and they can start to take advantage. Because I'm trying so hard to entangle when I'm not in the position to do so. So I'm more so in a grappling range when I do this. It's a lot easier for me to create pressure with my elbow, to create a squeeze. And so when I get it, I have a strong foundation, and I'm able to constrict and vine or snake around the target much easier. So that would be category number 1. Category number 2 is what we call a strike disarm. Very simple, as the name says, you strike it out of their hand. Now, a striking disarm can be as simple as, if I get an angle 1, if I hit the hand with an angle 1 right back and I hit it hard, like a hammer and nail concept, that should be enough to, essentially make him let go if his grip is not strong enough. If we were talking edged weapon and I cut the hand off, that is a possibility. But when we look more into sticks and we look into, a little bit more technique than just the simplified strike itself, what I can do is I can work off an angle 1. Like I said, I can grab the stick because it is not sharp, it's not an edged weapon. I twist it up, I line my live hand up here to be very parallel. I'm going to be punching the back of his hand here. And as I punch it, I'm also going to be twisting my body, generating power from my core and my hips, punching it out, and then causing it to release in an awkward angle. Now I have my 2 sticks, and I go ahead and follow up and strike. So punching disarms are generally more basic because they do require a little bit more physicality in terms of impact, and hopefully upon impact, again, we go through that hammer and nail concept that causes them to let go, either because of the pain or because of the position, and we force them to have no other choice but to give us the stick. So category 2 can be simple, and sometimes they will intertwine. I'll go over that in a bit. But category number 3, our final category, is what we call the eject disarms. So think of it this way: if you had a plane and the plane would be the arm itself, the plane is going to continue its course even if the pilot is there or not. Eventually it'll fall, but when the pilot, being the stick, is in the plane, presses the eject, the stick will leave and it will go its course, the plane will remain. So essentially what we're doing is we're creating counter pressure in certain situations, in certain positions, to strip the stick out or eject the stick out while we still have contact with the hand. So one of the more popular ones that I like, one of my favorites, is I'll work off of an angle 2 again. I'm going to check the hand, and I'm going to glue the stick or the pilot straight to my forearm here. I'm going to create a position where I make his grip inferior, so I'm going to be stripping it away from the fingers here. I'm going to be pulling with my hand and creating counter pressure with the frame on top here to eject the stick. So when I eject that stick, it could be as soft as I want. I can aim it and really strip it out, but you notice the hand position remains the same, and that's the most important part. So as I get that strip out and I maintain the hand position, I can then work off of this and go into different locks and throws and things of that nature. So when I do this eject concept, it's very important that I create a frame strong enough in some shape or form to be able to maintain but also cause an ejection of the stick. And that way I can play with my attributes depending on who my opponent is, on who my partner is, and I can determine if I need to push more or if I need to pull more. And a push and pull concept is a very, very common concept in Filipino martial arts, and a lot of arts for that matter, where you're constantly pulling with two opposite and making, a certain situation possible. So for finally, what we're going to go over is, like I said, sometimes our disarms fall into two categories. So one of the first disarms I teach here, we call it a full circle disarm. And essentially what I do is from an angle 1, I'm reaching over and I'm starting off with a vine. And the way I do the vine can interchange. I could be a little bit more aggressive, I could be a little bit more smooth. That'll depend. But once I get to this kind of locked up position here, I actually turn it into a strike. So as I strike it down, I'm essentially smacking his hand to the ground, not trying to maintain his stick, not trying to keep it inside my arm here, but literally no disregard for him, or rather no regard for him. I smack it down, the stick comes right out, lines it up for an angle 1, and then I would have successfully disarmed him. But the way I get into it, the way that I get to that position is off the vine concept. You can see my hand is working around, it's starting to constrict, starting to wrap around to get it into a submissive position. So when we disarm, sometimes we'll work off of another disarm. Sometimes we'll put them in cycles, and if you guys have been following this channel, you'll see that I've actually come out with a few disarm flows and how certain disarms link. And that's not based off of the actual movement. It does have a little bit to do with it. It's more so based off of principle and getting my opponent into a certain position to make that stick possible to leave. If I just tried to disarm from here, again, the best way I can disarm from here from a very natural, strong position is to simply hit the hand. If I wanted to eject the stick, if I wanted to strike the stick out, if I wanted to essentially vine or snake the stick out, I need to make his body move somewhere. I can't just work from here. And that's why we end up positions on the inside off of an angle 1 potentially, or on the outside from an angle 2. And from these positions we can start to see where we end up and see if we can get to something else where our techniques can start to combine. Ideally, if you did go for a disarm, and not to say disarms are that easy to get to in the first place, but if you did go for it, I'd like my first one to work. But if not, based off of principle and my understanding of how to take a stick out, based off the 3 categories, I should be able to maneuver my body to get to that next position and then strip them again. So disarming is a great way to test your brain a little bit. It's kind of like playing human chess with sticks with your partner, and just helps you focus on other things other than just simply striking. Disarms are, a very, very big part to the art. Whether it is completely applicable or not, it is a way to express and view the different positions that you can find yourself in, whether you're using the stick or even the limited amount you can do with the blade. When we disarm, it's just a fun way to practice one-upping the other person, to add that extra flair to your technique. So let me know which out of those 3 categories do you guys favor the most. If you guys practice more of striking disarms, if you guys are more about the vine disarms, comment below, let me know, guys. If you did enjoy the video, make sure you thumbs up. Make sure you also subscribe if you're new to this channel. And until next time, I'll catch you guys then.